All right, we are live. Welcome everyone to our book study group for Monday, the 27th of June, 2022. John Lavenia here with some of my favorite people. Look at these people here. Hi, Linda. There's Catherine. There's Missy. There's Bob and Mickey with a professional looking backdrop. Very good. Not sure where Stuart and some of the other usual suspects are tonight, but that's okay. We're on Bob Proctor's classic You Were Born Rich, chapter 7 and 8. Chapter 7 being the risk takers, and chapter 8, the razor's edge. Good stuff. So as is tradition, I'll just go ahead and open it up right now. Anybody got something that just like lit them up? And starting with chapter 7, the risk takers. What do you guys think of this? Any thoughts? Did you like to come out swinging on?
Just right out of the gate, his very first sentence.
Mm-hmm.
The days of defending your present possessions and positions are gone forever. I love his use of the word defending, because one thing I have learned is that you can play life defensively or you can play it offensively.
Right.
Okay. And if you're playing defense all the time, I liken it to a football team. You get two football teams. One has the initiative. I guess initiative is better than offensive. But the team that has the initiative, everything they do is, well, it just shows in the way that they perform. The defensive squad, they've been on the field all day, but so is the other team. But they're tired. The defensive team is tired. They do not perform as well. Things do not go their way because they're playing defense all the time. And playing defense all the time is really not a recipe for success.
Right.
You're always on the defensive. You like that football team. They stand there with their hands on their hips. They're doubled over. They're catching their breath. The offensive team's working just as hard as they are, but they look completely wiped out. So right out of the gate, playing life defensively is not going to win you very many games. Offense scores the points, but defense wins the games. You got to have the points, though. You got to get the points on the board, and you got to get the offense to do that.
You saying I'm offensive? Is that it?
No, I'm not saying you're offensive.
No, well, I used to live, well, up until, you live defensively when your physiology is not working right for decades. You just think that you're a thing, and there's nothing more to you than this thing that you have that you carry around with you. But through these materials, you learn that you have a choice. And that doesn't mean that physiology is cleared up in the wink of an eye. It can be. It's certainly possible. But regardless, you have to have faith. And you have to keep taking action. Even if the only action you could take one day is standing up for 5 seconds, that's taking action for you in your position. That's sometimes all I could do. Sometimes I couldn't even do that. Sometimes I couldn't even move, literally couldn't move my body. So I'm far from that. I'm still in that physiological thing, and I'm trying to crawl my way up through my thoughts now. I used to try to force myself to be well. And I've learned you can't do that. You have to think your way. The thoughts become the things. So I picture myself in a healthy body. I picture myself as the person who can do anything she wants, eat anything she wants, because she doesn't have these limitations anymore. And the more I get in the right when I can reach that vibratory level, I will be there, and she will be me, and I will be her. And that's the same for everybody. No matter what your situation is. But did he talk about that in the other chapter? It's a level of vibrations. Here's our goal, but here we are saying, why don't we have this goal? Because we're still over here, but you probably can't see my hands because of the background. But
you and your damn backgrounds.
Well, listen, that's my dream house, and I'm
right.
Making it real.
There you go. Well, and Bob said it multiple times in this chapter. You can't hold a thought without, the physical, without something showing up, right? So that's how it works. So what you guys are talking about is going on the offensive It's funny. I just got an email today from one of our Patriot friends who is asking for support with his legal offense fund. So never mind legal defense, legal offense
I never,
fund. Right. So he's going after, the bureaucracy and the deep state and all this. You know who this is, the pillow guy, Mike. Right. So his legal offense fund. But it also reminds me, as you and Bob are talking, it reminds me of the idea that you can't economize your way to success. All right. So part of financial planning and prosperity and all this includes income greater than outgo. All right. So go ahead and economize. I mean, you want to eliminate leaks, waste and stuff like that. But you can't economize your way to riches. You can, in fact, one of the first things that companies and people need to do is promote. And in some cases that means invest in, web development, advertising, stuff like that. So that's not being more economical. That's advancing, not retreating. Right. So we're not economizing our way into fame and fortune or whatever. And look, as a guy who I consider myself pretty frugal. I mean, granted, I got a lot of stuff already. How much more stuff do I need to buy? Okay. I think you get to a point in life where you go from accumulate to, lighten the load, no, I don't want it. Here, you want this. So, but the point is that we've got to have some balance there. If people are constantly, as Bob said, on the defense, yeah, that's rough. That's rough. Who else had some ideas on this risk takers paradigm shift here?
Hi, John.
Hey.
Well, what stood out for me was, the way he was saying, we need to take risks, but we need to be responsible in taking those risks. But in order to succeed, we have to step out and take the risk. So we have to do it with knowledge and faith, but be responsible, not, irresponsibly doing something. I don't know what the words are I'm looking for, but get the general idea of what I'm saying.
Right. Well, he actually kind of identified them as opposites. So like being a risk taker is a very responsible thing to do. It's like,
Right.
I am responsible. I am causing things to happen. I have knowledge and I'm going to apply that knowledge.
Right.
Right. Versus irresponsible. And a lot of times he also said, don't cross the line. Right. So you can push things to the edge. And like, we're going to talk in the next chapter about the razor's edge. But I think a lot of times the people who don't take risks, as Earl Nightingale put it, the timid creatures of the lagoon that never venture out into the deep sea, right? So if that's the position we've come from or have resided in for years or decades or whatever, then what we're basically saying is that I am not or cannot be responsible for having a bigger effect, for causing stuff to happen in a bigger sphere. It's kind of like, in general session today, we talked about, being independent of the good opinion of others, right? Now, a lot of times people will justify, we got lots of reasons and justifications and excuses, but just fear of criticism a lot of times. What if I make an ass of myself? Lindsay, who's here with us, I shared probably a year ago, maybe more, I shared an affirmation that I got from a pastor of a church. He said, I dare to make an ass of myself. He had everybody repeat that. And so what will they think? Never mind what they think. All right. So you've got purpose. You're being divinely guided to do something. In fact, Bob said, you got to make mistakes, make big ones. You'll learn quicker. Okay. That doesn't mean throw caution to the wind to be an idiot. Right. So thank you, Linda. Anything else on that, Linda? You muted up again. All right. So claiming or assigning responsibility and causation to ourselves, and therefore taking the risks and doing the things that the timid don't or won't do for whatever the reasons are is a highly responsible thing to do. Anybody else on, before I dive into my notes on this chapter here? Anybody else on this? Linda, I guess you were done. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen.
I'm done. Sorry, John, I'm driving. It's hard. So.
Oh, okay, no worries.
Yeah, but no, I got nothing to add.
Linda is passing the talking stick. Okay, I have the talking stick. So, so I like how he's actually giving us, it's almost like a, here's the hypnotic command, right? The days of defending your present possessions and positions are gone forever. Therefore, from this day forward, you will never have to, right? He's actually commanding us here and giving us his postulated idea for our future. It's an interesting tactic for an author to do that. And yet I think it's very welcome here. So he says here, henceforth, you will wake up in the morning thinking only of ways to do the things you want to do, rather than waking up thinking of all the reasons why you cannot do those things. So if you're willing to fall in line, I suppose, with his command here, well, that's pretty cool, right? It's like you wake up, feet jump out of the bed, and it's like, you know what? Here I am. I'm going to go do this. I'm actually going to go do this. Now, this, of course, correlates with the other pieces of the puzzle that he presented through the book, right? Is that you actually got to know what you're here to accomplish. All right. So he's talking about here that this may be frightening, but you will never hear of, read about, or see anyone who achieves anything of greatness in his or her own life without first taking some kind of risk. So to quote Albert Green Hubbard, he said, in order to avoid criticism, do nothing, say nothing, be nothing. All right. So we're going to, even if it's risking, how others perceive us, right? Which may sound, well, what's the big deal? I mean, you're going after your dreams. Well, a lot of people worship agreement, and dare not step outside of the herd. All right. The life of anyone who chooses to live with extreme caution will never amount to anything more than a succession of dull, soporific days continuing on without interruption. So there's the contrast. So you can either do this, as he's suggesting, or here you go. And I had to remind myself of the word soporific, tending to induce drowsiness or sleep. All right. And he gets into some analogies. Bob likes to paint the picture a few different times, but all right. So here's the one thing that all these successful, millionaires and multimillionaires have in common. Even though everything they owned was riding on the outcome of virtually every major business decision which they made, none of them considered themselves to be taking risks. That is interesting. The reason they didn't, he went on to explain, was because they were living their lives as though it were impossible to fail. Anybody recognize that quote, that quoted part? As though it were impossible to fail. Another book that we've read. This was the one-line major philosophy that changed the entire life and career of Dorothea Brande. Chapter 5, Wake Up and Live. Act as though it were impossible to fail. Remember, in another book, which we've quoted many times, The Science of Getting Rich, Wallace Wattles, right, talked about doing things with purpose and faith, and doing things in the certain way, acting as though it were impossible to fail. So look, anybody here, in hindsight, can you look back in your life and see where you've accomplished something great, something of note, something above average, but not because you sat there and you calculated the risk and you did it anyway with your spreadsheets and your slide rulers, okay? But because you were on friggin' fire. And it was just like, I've got to do this. And so you stop thinking about That doesn't mean you're not prudent, okay? But you stop thinking about what could go wrong and all this. You're on a mission, and you know you're going to hit the target. Wow. Now, that is a completely different experience from the person who, the timid creatures of the lagoon. All right, what's the purpose? What's the big advancement? What's the accomplishment? I'm not sure. I don't know. Well, then you're going to sit there and look at everything that can go wrong and, lick your wounds and think that, if you miss the mark this time, then this is your last shot or something. Wow, that's kind of rough. So I think the big contrast here comes down to definiteness of purpose, which Napoleon Hill said 5 billion friggin' times, right? In Think and Grow Rich, and combining that with an air of certainty, faith, right? So purpose and faith, as Waddell said, you see how all these pieces come together? And now we're not so damn timid anymore. Now let's go on the offense. Let's do it. Moving on, he says here, indeed, as one has the opportunity to observe the performance of individuals from all walks of life, it soon becomes evident that whoever plays it safe in life dies, and dies relatively young. For although many of these individuals remain clinically alive for numerous years, when their hearts finally cease beating, it is a mere formality, because the truth is they never have really lived. Our buddy Ben Franklin said most men die at age 25 and then walk around waiting to be buried until they're 60 or whatever. Oh my goodness. Now medical science has raised that number. None of us was ever born with a fear of taking risks. So all this is learned. All this programming was programmed, right? If you bought, anybody ever build a computer, or let's say replaced a hard drive on a computer, or now an SSD or whatever, right? So the storage, okay, and had to go ahead and load the operating system onto that new piece of hardware. So the hardware doesn't come with any software on it, right? It's just, there it is, it's formatted and nothing, and do whatever you want, right? Well, what do you want to do? Oh, well, let's load the operating system on it. Let's load some data, right? And that's the program. That's what and that same exact hard drive could be loaded into a different machine and program something totally different and do something totally different. It may sound too simple, and granted, right, we're not necessarily aware of a lot of the programs we run on. It says here, impressionable young mind, right? Who put that stuff in there? Where'd you buy that deal, right? In another book which we've read, Weldon Long, The Power of Consistency, he talks about the box, and how if you had a box of parts, right, and you were going to build something, well, the only thing you could build is the thing for which the parts were in the box, right? If there's motorcycle parts in the box, you're not going to end up with a cake, okay? You can't make the cake out of those parts, right? So who put that stuff in your box? Same kind of a concept, right? And can we go ahead and take inventory and make some decisions about what we want in our box, right? So to act courageously, and this is also courageously in considering your own most cherished thoughts and beliefs and whatever, right? Sometimes we have to have courage and look at, what program am I running here? But to act courageously is considerably different from acting foolishly. So that doesn't mean I'm abandoning everything I know, or that, any idea of, prudence or anything like that. It just means that I'm actually going to assign cause to myself and be responsible for what I do next. It's absolutely essential that you never cross over that line, inadvertently or otherwise, right? So the line between, and here's the one that I like to bring up with people a lot, is the line between unreasonable and irresponsible. We're going to get unreasonable. We're going to go, in other words, we're going to go beyond reason, which has its limits, okay? We're going to go beyond mere reason, which is one mental faculty, and it's good and it's nice, okay? But we're going to go beyond that. We're not going across some line into irresponsibility. Big difference. So when we talk about taking risks here, let's use like a real world example. Here's somebody who's looking to invest in their business. Okay. And that is something that causes them discomfort. They are risk averse. So the question then they could ask themselves is, all right, would it be unreasonable based on what I already know, reasons based on what we already know? Okay. Would it be unreasonable for me to step over that line? Yes. Yes. I don't know. I don't know all the answers. Okay. Got it. Would it be irresponsible? In other words, would you put yourself, on the street and not feed your kids or something? Right. Well, now we're getting irresponsible, right? So we do maintain the idea of, thinking ahead a bit and doing what's ethically right for ourselves and for all those involved. So I think that's the line. If we're looking for a barometer of, what's irresponsible, I come back to the thing, which I also learned from Bob, is that when making decisions, successful people ask themselves two questions. Will this move me in the direction of my goals? Yes or no. And second question is, will this violate the rights of others? Yes or no. And if the answer to the first question is yes, and the second question is no, then that's it. There's no third question. Go get unreasonable. Beautiful. Moving on. I think I highlighted a couple more things in this chapter. Risk takers are knowledgeable people who study situations carefully, have confidence in their own abilities, and have very healthy self-image. So this describes people here, does it not? Right? You study situations. You're not a dummy. You're knowledgeable. You have confidence in your own abilities. And it's not, you can't be all things to all people, but the things that you've chosen to put your attention on, yeah, you've developed some confidence and you've had wins, because we build our own confidence through acknowledging actual wins, actual experiences that we've done. But we'll never do that if we don't reach, if we don't execute, right? And because we've built up our confidence, because we are doers, we have a healthy self-image. The transformation that I've witnessed just here in this group, spectacular, right? With people, and not just people that I've also get to observe in myself, things where, look, here we are reading books every week. We get together. Okay. As easy as it is to do this, it's even easier to not do it. Okay. And there was a time where I had pretty much abandoned study. It's like, and granted, I had, I had some situations going on in my life where I became not as how could I say, not affable, but I became a bit cynical. I'll say that. I became a bit cynical after some situations that happened in my life. And I required to rehabilitate some of the principle-based actions that I had done for years and that I had gained a lot of success with. And I had to revisit that stuff because there was a time when I went down into that valley of darkness. You know what? Thank you guys for showing up here every week. That means I have to show up every week and actually have read the stuff so I know what the hell I'm talking about. So thank you. Moving on. Since it is impossible to hold an image, here's what Missy was talking about, in the mind without also expressing it, the end result of Bob's and Pat's imaging, which is one of the case studies here, was the birth of their own company. Okay, so all he did was put their attention back on, wherever it says it up here, back on what they actually wanted to create. And because they kept their attention on that, just like you could choose to have your attention on where you're going and not just where you've been or what could go wrong and all the other stories, that's going to find outward expression. So it's just stacking the deck in your favor. Really good stuff. So here's your instructions. Write out your ambition in as much detail as possible and in the present tense. Do not write it out as something you're planning to do. Rather, write it out as if it were something you are doing currently. In big, bold letters, write, I can. That's present tense. And then yell it, say it, sing it. Drill the idea that you are now doing, that you're now going to do this thing into your subconscious mind. I think Missy had brought up a question about the present tense. I now see myself earning this much money. All right, so that's present tense. Okay. And so I now, and part of that, by the way, isn't just the receiving of the reward, the riches or whatever, but it's also seeing yourself exchanging goods, services, whatever you're doing in exchange for the riches, right? It's also seeing that. Okay. Seeing I think one of the examples he gave in the next chapter was the auto shop that was, the auto repair shop that was not doing well. And he counseled with them, made a tiny little tweak, a razor's edge difference, and everything changed within 2 weeks. And with that, we are out of this chapter. Any other thoughts on the risk takers? Hey, Bob and Missy.
With all due respect to my wife, who thinks she's the chief of the grammar police, I want to get your thoughts and the thoughts of others on using the present tense, but the passive voice. Because I now see myself as receiving is not really active, okay, in the sense that I see myself receiving. It's supposed to see myself doing or see myself acquiring, all right? It seems to me that is a little bit of a craven way of expressing yourself, a little bit of holdback there, that rather than saying, I see myself with, I see myself having acquired, I see myself working with this capital. Say, I see myself receiving, it's like you're still waiting for it to come in a certain sense. Thoughts on that?
I think whatever words work best for you, right? We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. If somebody is affirming, I am a millionaire, I'm a millionaire, and they just feel like they're lying to themselves, well, then it could be a good route for them to take. I now see myself becoming a millionaire. I now see myself, with a certain amount of money or whatever the item is. So I think it's important that it brings up it raises your self-image and you don't fight with yourself over it. Hopefully that answers it. Right. So, Bob's muted. Okay. So good. Any other questions, thoughts, comments on this? We're all good. Shall we move on to the razor's edge? Let's do it. Who's got some thoughts on this? He had lots of cool anecdotes and stories in this chapter. The razor's edge. Chapter 8. Who's got some ideas on this one? Nobody. Okay. I got some ideas on it. Let me go ahead and share my screen again, and we'll get this bring this chapter to life over here. All right, preview. Razor's edge. You're only 1 inch, 1 step, 1 idea away from turning onto the boulevard of beauty in your own life. That's a nice promise, right? That's a nice thing to consider, is that we've already got so much, and just perhaps one little tweak, 1 step, 1 additional effort, right? And when we consider it like that, and he gives us some examples in here, it doesn't have to be some big Herculean effort. Like we got to put on our cape and mask and leap tall buildings in a single bound. I know that sounds cool, and we sometimes, marvel at stories like that. Okay, but basically he's breaking it down into one of the things that I like to say is that habits beat heroics. All right. So here's a razor's edge difference between people. One person just about starts a project, the other person starts. Right. So here's the almost complete versus the complete. Here's the person who can see and act on opportunity and one who doesn't quite. Right. So the difference in their marks may be only 1 percentage point out of 100, but that's the point that makes all the difference. So those little things, and they add up and they accrue. Did I hear somebody? No. Okay. But you mentioned the racehorse, right? And the second best racehorse made, exponentially less money. So you are every bit as good or as powerful as anyone you see, know, or even hear about. So he's warning about the pedestal. Oh, they're so amazing. I could never do that. Be careful. That's an affirmation as well. Remember, since the difference between them and you is only in the area of accomplishments, and since there is something you can do that will vastly improve the results you are achieving presently, you have the potential to become even more successful than they are. So a lot of times people compare their insides to other people's outsides and put people on pedestals and all this. And they read their own autobiography into other people's outward displays. And so what we've got to do, I think, is self-acknowledge, right? This whole idea of having a strong self-image and confidence and all that is not conceit. It's actually humility. It's honest self-appraisal. Sure, you've got weaknesses, but you have strengths, right? And there are areas where you can excel in life as good or better than the spectacles that you might marvel at. But be careful of that pedestal or that imaginary wall between some celebrity or whatever and you, the commoners. Don't be the commoner. Don't be a peasant. Okay, you're next. In fact, you can do it bigger and better. Now that's a lot for some people to swallow, but he's offering you the opportunity to start eating that. All right, that's big. In fact, he's not the first guy that told you to tell you, you could do this and even greater things. Right. So he was talking here about Vince Lombardi and how the guys get beat down, they get stopped. Great. Second effort, right? Hit him again. So the second effort concept simply meant that when a player was initially stopped by the opposing team, he would always surge forward a second time with the added thrust of a second effort. So a lot of this is psychological, but rather than sitting there licking your wounds, right? Let's redouble our efforts. Let's hit him again, right? And this, because where's their razor's edge? Where does that end? So if you got this team here and this team here, and they just hit you hard, right? Well, maybe that's all they got. Hit him again. So obviously this is a metaphor, for sports, but if not, obviously it works there. Wouldn't it work in other, let's say, more subjective things in life? Here's a razor's edge difference. How much kindlier you feel towards a particular retail store when the cashier smiles, "Thank you for your business. Come back real soon," compared to, "Are you going to buy anything or not?" I remember writing about the difference between Starbucks, which I used to go to a lot, and the local convenience store in terms of a cup of coffee. I wrote about this in Integrity is Everything. In one case, you go in, you pay your 89 cents. Is that it? Yeah, all right, get the hell out. And in the other case, it's like, custom made. They write your name on it. Would you like a crumpet to, accompany your custom drink today? And how about some coffee drinking memorabilia? Right. So a completely different experience and a completely different price tag. Okay. And people are standing in line at the gourmet place. So this reminded me, Missy and everyone, this reminded me of the impression of increase. What is this other than the impression of increase? Thanks for your business. Come back real soon. The impression of increase. Beautiful concept. It says here, the razor's edge difference that changed their business from a loser to a winner turned out to be nothing more dramatic than a hospitable attitude and a few additional touches on each and every automobile. There's the auto shop that was, they were great at repairing cars, but they were terrible at that impression of increase. So, treat your customers like, people that you actually want to deal with, and, clean their windshield and stuff, and bam, their business took off. Oh my goodness. Once people have become proficient in the basics in any particular field, they usually choose to stop learning. And of course, from that point forward, they cease to improve. So this is something where good enough for not getting fired at a job isn't good enough for you to outgrow your position and to advance to higher positions. We must become bigger than the space that we currently occupy. Is another way of saying it here. And so there's the rank and file, let's say in any profession, in sales. Okay. So here's the rank and file salespeople who make a living. And then there's the people whose paychecks are 2, 3, maybe more times higher than the rank and file. What's this razor's edge difference? Okay, well, in addition to knowing what they're selling, okay, these people up here also know what their ideal customer wants. They also know what the competition's selling. They also have worked on perhaps even simulations, which Bob talks about in here, where they handle like objections, right? And so by the time they actually get in front of the customer, they gotta buy, right? Because they're just so armed. They got so much ammo, right? Whereas the rank and file salesperson, they did enough to not get fired. Enormous difference. Okay. Although the item being sold, same item, same data, right? That's it. There's the spec sheet. It's the same stuff. So where could we go? And this is how he ends this chapter, is where could you go to go be spectacular? What could you do? Think of something that you could do to cross that razor's edge and get into that rare, space up there. Although this amounts to only 1 hour of study per day. He's talking about doing 1 hour's worth of, let's say, listening to audiobooks or whatever in your car. Okay. Even if it's 1 hour study per day, if you were to follow the schedule rigorously in a relatively short span of time, you would stand amongst your peers like a giraffe in a herd of field mice. So, hence, we meet here every day, right? For our members here in the Success Mastermind, to keep sharpening that saw. And look, the transformation, while it may not be an overnight, holy crap, look at me, I'm a superhero, a little bit every day, stay in that conversation. I remember when I first started engaging in any personal development, it was going to a meeting every day, right? To discuss principles and stuff like that. Put $1 in the basket and sit there and talk about life, right? And here I am, decades later, and arguably my life works. All right. Remember, it is virtually impossible to keep exposing your mind to great ideas without having those ideas expressed in your physical world. Second time we read that tonight. Keep putting it in, and it's going to show up. So have some faith in that, right? And work with the law and work with the mechanisms that make all this happen. All right. Back to the idea of habits beat heroics. Here's someone who wants to write a book. I got the kids. I can't go away and do the thing. I need to go to the islands or something. No, you don't. You can go ahead and write at least 1 page per day. And in a year's time, you'd have 365 pages. Nice book or a couple of smaller books, right? So if it's worth doing, it's worth doing now. If it's important, if it's on purpose, right? He talked about the artificial heart and how even that was unlikely. And here it is. Here are these guys that defied the odds. Okay. And he said also that perhaps the factor which will catapult you into the big leagues, which will multiply your income from a material as well as a psychic point of view, will be your own ability to persist. He quoted Napoleon Hill, who was citing, Edison and Ford and these guys, saying if they had nothing else, they had that persistence. That was it. Okay. So just that razor's edge of doing a little bit more, continuing on again, and not throwing in a towel. That could be the one thing. So finally, I think we're getting to the end here. Rehearse, and then rehearse some more. Whether you're putting in artificial hearts or you're doing the sales deal, for in this matter, you will attain the stature of a true professional. And of course, you will receive the compensation a true professional deserves. No comparison. All right. Here's the end of the chapter. Now, stop reading. Sit back, relax, and think. Really think. What is it in your life that will make a razor's edge difference for you? You know what it is? Good. Do it now. So enough with preparation, and somehow you're going to be ready and you're not ready now, or there's a state that's more ready than you are. Enough. What is that one thing that you could do? And this is what he's admonishing us to figure out. You got to sit back and be quiet for a little while. And you probably already know what it is. And it may be something that you've practiced avoidance, but now you're going to do a little bit. Not all of it. a little bit on a proper gradient. Okay. Remember, he's talking about becoming a true professional and, rising far above the average. Okay. That doesn't happen overnight. The doctor who kept studying the medical journals, even after having left medical school, he was already a competent surgeon, but now he's the best in the world, right? How did that happen? That happened over time. Some of us read the Atomic Habits, James Clear, Atomic Habits. He talked about the upward curve of a 1% improvement each day and how that starts to compound. 1% of what? 1% of that much, of that much, of that much. And it goes up and up and up. 1% each day over a year. It's pretty spectacular. 1% decline over a year. It's a 1% less of a lesser amount. So you can kind of flatline and just kind of go on, like you said in the previous chapter, go on and just be kind of humdrum, miserable, whatever, and just survive. And that's it, right? 1% decrease, right? There's kind of like a baseline there. A 1% increase, that goes up very nice after time. So what's the one thing that you could do? A little bit each day. Could be the razor's edge difference. What do you guys think of this?
I love this, John, because I was just thinking both of these chapters really spoke to me on a personal level. And sometimes I think the razor's edge can almost be kind of like a fork in the road. Before you actually make that act, that one little act, you have a certain view. But once you cross over to the other side, your view changes. Everything changes. Like the path that you're on here, just with that one decision, the entire path changes. And there's a complete different vision that sparks your creativity, your curiosity, all the things that can propel you forward in order to continue moving in that positive motion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a paradigm shift once you cross that Rubicon, so to speak, right?
Indeed.
Wow. Good stuff. Thank you, Mickey. Great backdrop once again. Looks really good. Good times. All right. Any other thoughts on this, Janet? Come on out.
Well, I was just thinking, that little bit. So maybe your business meant that you have to speak. And so daily you speak, you do words, you do vocabulary, you listen to good speakers, you make good, you practice it. Like you said, the surgeon, whatever, you practice it. You practice if you're making pitches to people, you practice it. You imagine scenarios where people are resistant and how do I overcome the resistance? You whatever kind of thing you can think that comes up, and hopefully some that you haven't thought of, you practice it. You practice your skill, you practice your art, you practice whatever it is. If you were a car salesman at one point, I don't think that you went in cold. I think you probably went through scenarios of someone coming into the lot, how you would approach them, how you would, what you would show them, how you would listen to what they were saying, how you wouldn't treat every customer the same. And customers, I think it takes a lot to get a customer. And when you do have one, you want to treat them like the valued treasure that they are. Treat them right. That's what you were saying about the Starbucks and things like that. Make them feel special. Make them feel that, oh, I'm so glad you're here. I don't mean it to be, it's authentic. I really am so glad you're here, and have it come from an authentic place. Whatever it is, if you're thinking, but I don't think you can think only in terms of business, because who are you and what do you bring and what's special to you? And those are the things that you want to magnify in yourself, in what you offer and how you approach, and run through those. Go do those little habits that make you that, the speech in a week is going to be that much better, unless you get tired of it and then you've got to make it alive. Is going to be better than when you started, better on Friday than it was on Monday. Get some life in you, get some knowing what you're going to be talking about. All of these little things can really add up. And, how do you have rapport with somebody? how, what things can you do to just be personal with them so they have a little bit of feeling for you, things like that. But yeah, I agree.
Great
Good
observations.
words. Good words.
Thank you, Mickey.
Good stuff. Anybody else?
The very last sentence of this last chapter, good, then do it now, right? There's no time like the present, okay? Maybe it was better to have been done 20 years ago. But if you can't have done it 20 years ago, do it now. And it's, seize the day, seize the moment, and make it your own. The great musical, The Music Man. I hope you're all familiar with it. If you're not, you really don't deserve to be called an American. You are the Canadians who may be watching. But for the end, when Professor Harold Hill is trying to make his final move on Marion the librarian, he wants her to go with him to the footbridge, where decent girls never went. But she kept putting him off. She said, just 15 minutes, just 15 minutes more, tomorrow. And he said, oh, Madam Librarian, if you keep promising yourself tomorrow, you will have acquired nothing but a lot of empty yesterdays. So more homespun, a little more philosophical, a lot of food for thought in that, but essentially he's saying what Bob Proctor said, do it now. If you want it, do it now. No sense putting it off any longer. Whether it's something that is distasteful or something that you really appreciate doing or want to do it now.
Carpe diem. Seize the carp.
Seize the carp.
Oh, the carp dies.
Can I return to something, Bob? The grammar thing. And so I heard someone who said it wasn't like I see myself doing, because that's like a remote viewing. So that's a little bit remote, but it's more like, I love doing this. I'm so happy doing this. You get excited in the moment. That raises your vibration, I think, way more than, oh yeah, I see myself, doing this thing. I see myself with all these riches. I see myself, being the top somebody or other. I love being the top person. I like this position. This is great. I feel so good, that kind of thing. Just more immediate, I think.
Good stuff. Thank you, Janet.
You're welcome, John.
All right, last call on The Razor's Edge. Anybody else? Okay, so we're going to complete this book next week. We got the final 2 chapters. So read that. And then I will be sending out an email to everyone who's subscribed to the book study list on what the next book is going to be. And I think I'm going to consult with Bob and Missy on that, because they both have strong ideas on what it should be. Missy, which one was it from you?
Power of Awareness. Neville.
Power of Awareness.
I named Neville something.
Oh, Neville, right. And we haven't read a Dale Carnegie
These
book.
chapters. It's boring.
And of course, Bob, you were mentioning Dale Carnegie.
How to Stop Worrying and Start Living.
Okay.
And these 2 chapters that we did tonight in particular point in that direction,
Okay.
particularly chapter 7.
Got it. Okay.
Let Bob do it this time.
Very good. Well, I am going to put those 2 in a hat. Does anybody else have a book you want to offer for a next book idea? We can read them all. That's fine. We got time.
Your Invisible Power
Oh,
by Genevieve Brandt. She was
Sure.
a student of Thomas Tward.
I've read it.
It's an easy read. It's quick.
Yeah, it is.
Thomas is not. Thomas,
No. Thomas is like a Bible.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Any other ideas? Since we're ending off early here tonight. All right. I'm going to put those 3 in a hat. We're going to see which one comes out.
I will never gotta be the winner.
I know. Yeah. All right, my friends. Have a great week. Read the last couple chapters of this book. We'll see you back here next time. Love you guys.
We're going to have our own fireworks display next week.
Very good. We shall. All right.
Good night.